Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to the Sports Rap Podcast. Available wherever you get your podcast. This is Will Armani. The topic of this little short talk is the NFL and its hiring practices. As we just saw, this was crazy. 10 openings, 10 head coach positions opened in the league. 0 black hires. 0 black head coaches were hired. Wow. What's happened? So the NFL is digressing in its commitment to diversity. Now when it comes to the players are still, 75% black. But the coaching part of the game is regressing. It is more like a Trump type hiring, Trump's Wells against DEI, no DEI. However, in his cabinet, you see a lot of white privilege. White men who don't qualify or have failed in the past or who don't belong anywhere at that level of government, who have failed, and they get hired, and there's no problem. So it's becoming more like the Trump philosophy of employment than Dr. King or anybody else who believes in diversity. Now let's get this straight. When I talk about diversity, and they like to put out this DEI thing as if when blacks or other minorities get the positions, they don't qualify. They only got it because of their color, which is ridiculous. Every job you apply for, every role you are up for, you generally have to meet the qualifications. What the DEI aspect of it is that they take into account the lack of diversity, the lack of opportunity, the lack of past hiring of certain kinds of people in these organizations like the NFL. So just because you hire a Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh doesn't mean Mike Tomlin was not qualified. Mike Tomlin has won the Super Bowl and has never lost a regular season or hasn't had a losing season in 19 years as a head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's qualified to be a head coach in the NFL. Definitely. So you can't say a guy like that got his job just because he's black. Right? There's been others, plenty of others. Tony Dungy is a good coach. He was a good coach for the Colts. And so we've had, and currently, DeMeco Ryans of the Houston Texans, is an excellent coach. He didn't end up there just because he's black. That's not a DEI hire. So it's crazy whenever nowadays in this current environment, when a black person gets a high-profile job, the haters like to say, oh, he's only there because of his skin color. It's DEI, it's affirmative action. However, on the flip side, when an unqualified white person like a Pete Hegseth or all these coaches that keep getting fired like a Stefanski, who's 6-28 in the last 2 years, gets fired, turns around and gets hired right away by the Atlanta Falcons. Fired by the Cleveland Browns. He only had 2 winning seasons in 6 years. 2 winning seasons in 6 years. So 4 losing seasons. And in the last 2 years, he's only won 6 games. 6 games. 6 games out of 34. And you telling me that's not a white privilege hire? That's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. So, if the NFL wants to go that route, just say so. Say so and do what you got to do and say, you know what? We no longer care. We no longer give a you-know-what about lack of diversity, lack of black coaches, and other minorities at the coaching level. We don't care. We're just going to do our thing. We're going along with the philosophy of Donald Trump and ignoring the direction and the ambitions laid out by men like Martin Luther King Jr. We don't care about that anymore. Just say that and do what you got to do. But stop pretending that you care about diversity. A few years ago, about maybe 2 years ago, they had, end racism in the end zone. They had this, campaign, anti-racism campaign. And then word came that Donald Trump didn't really like that. And boom, those signs, anti-racism signs, disappeared from the NFL, from the end zone, from the fields. So the NFL has decided to kowtow to the far right and the MAGA and those who oppose any recognition of past wrongs. And they now are refusing to engage in any type of hiring that smacks of equal opportunity and equal access for blacks and other minorities. We can't do anything about the ownership. That remains 99.9% white men, of course. However, all these black coaches, now in the lower ranks, there are a lot of black assistant coaches. There are black coordinators. In fact, Raheem Morris, the Atlanta head coach that they just fired, he is the only black coach in my memory that has been fired and then the next year got a job at least the coordinator level. He's a good defensive coordinator, defensive coach, no doubt. But I don't think they gave him a chance to build what he needed to build in Atlanta. Like I said, a lot of these coaches, was that Brian Dabble of the Giants? How long did he coach for? And he kept losing and kept losing and kept losing. I think 4 years, kept losing. And they fired him in 2025. He recently just got a job. I think he got a job as a coordinator the same year. Mike McCarthy been fired from Green Bay and was fired from most recently Dallas Cowboys for losing. And he was just recently hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers to be their head coach. You see, and more recently, the Seahawks had let Pete Carroll go. Then 2 years ago, he became head coach of the Raiders at the age of 70-something? Became the oldest head coach in football. They couldn't find a black coordinator, somebody in their 40s, so they go hire old Pete Carroll. Why? No, the conversation must be had. Let's say what it is. if you are entertaining and kowtowing to the backlash against DEI and opportunities for minorities, then say that and be about that. Be about it. Just stop pretending. Stop the nonsense with this Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule. What rule? Where is this rule and what is it? Supposedly, the Rooney Rule requires that teams at least interview I believe two black coaches. Interview. They don't have to hire them. Just give them an interview. And up until now, even this hiring cycle where they hired 10 coaches and none of them were black, you saw the charade. Hiring black coaches. It's not really on their mind. Complying with this BS rule is what they were all about. So they put the coaches through a little song and dance. I say, they invite them over, pretend they give a damn. Both sides know there's likely not a chance of hiring. Bring them over to the office, take them out on a little chicken dinner or something, send them on their way. Act like they have a chance. And then days later, bring in one of these failed white coaches. Treat them to a plush dinner. Then bring them in as the new head coach of the Falcons. The new head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. For like 20-something years now, you've seen the same failed white coaches get recycled throughout the league. They get fired, then they get hired right away. They get fired, and they get hired next year. Byron Leftwich was a coordinator when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with Tom Brady, won the Super Bowl. That's right. Byron Leftwich was a longtime quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He played in the league for a few years, 8 years or so. Then he became an assistant coach and then a coordinator, and a very good coordinator. Hasn't had a meaningful interview for a head coaching opportunity in about, 4 or 5 years. Hasn't. This past cycle, they didn't even call Byron Leftwich. Not even for a coordinator position. But Byron Leftwich has shown that he can coach and should be given the opportunity to be a head coach, you see. So it's not DEI when somebody qualifies, but you ignore them and don't give them an opportunity to lead and to coach. That's not DEI. But when somebody's qualified, you don't give them the opportunity to even have the job, that's discrimination. That's discrimination. And you turn around and hire people who have not proven anything that equal to what Byron Leftwich has done. I believe there are about 3 young coaches in their 30s that were hired. I'm not sure, but you can go look up the coaches that were hired. And you won't have many coaches who will be first-time head coaches who have won the Super Bowl as coordinators. So you bring in these coaches who have been assistant coaches, who have been this type of coach, that type of coach, haven't won the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, Byron Leftwich is sitting there, not even getting a phone call. Not even getting a phone call. Why? They are recycling the same failed coaches. And you can see it. Failed coaches are being brought back in droves. The same names, the same profile. The only minority that was hired this cycle was Robert Saleh, the former head coach of the Jets, who was fired from the Jets, went back to be a defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers for a couple of years, and was just now retained as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Saleh is one of the best defensive coaches in the league. So other than that, no other minorities received serious consideration for a head coach position in this cycle where 10 positions were available as head coaches. Let's get serious. It is what it is. Call it for what it is. The NFL is no longer serious, at least at the rank of coach, head coach. And even the coordinators are dwindling in terms of black representation. This is what's going on. They're not serious about having more black coaches. They act as if all the white coaches show up and they start winning right away. No. Some coaches lose, some coaches win. Remember O.J. Mayo? I believe that was his name. Mayo was hired by Bob Kraft after Bill Belichick was relieved of his duties as the New England Patriots head coach. And Mr. Mayo was hired. Now the team had no talent when Mayo took the job. No talent. So they were rebuilding. And I believe they might have won, 4 games or so that year. And then right away, that coach was fired. Belichick had a losing season in his last year with basically the same roster of no names. So Mayo gets the same roster of no-name players, no good players. And within one season, he gets fired. See the short leash? Then as soon as they started using those draft picks and making moves, and then boom, they bring in Vrabel. Now they have players. Vrabel starts winning. What does it look like? It looks like it was a coaching problem. It looks like the black coach couldn't win. Now Vrabel's winning. Never mind that they had no talent, because the guy they called the greatest head coach, Bill Belichick, was fired because he was losing with the same roster as Mayo was losing with. By the time Vrabel got there, New England had re-upped their talent. See, football is not something that just the coach controls. It's the front office and the talent on the field that dictates whether a team is a winning coach, a winning team, or a losing team, and whether a coach is going to be a winning coach or a losing coach. Without talent, you have nothing. This is what they say about Stefanski and the Browns. They say the Browns had nothing on offense, no talent. They had a great offense. They have a great defense, no offense. True. They have studs on defense. Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the game. You have Denzel Ward. And then they have the new young kid, the linebacker, the rookie that's going to be a stud. So the Cleveland Browns have star power on their defense, not so much on the offense. And that was Stefanski's thing. He was supposed to be the offensive genius. A genius cannot genius without the talent to genius with, right? So a lot of these times you have some of these black coaches and the talent it's not there for them, yet they are judged as if they're supposed to create miracles. And they have a short leash, a year, maybe 2. If they don't turn things around within 2 years, they're gone. Generally within 1 year. 1 year to turn a losing team that has no talent into a winning team. Excuse me. How is that? So once again, we saw what the NFL did this year. We witnessed the league regressing on this commitment to at least diversify the leadership on the sideline. They didn't do that. The owners didn't do that. This is not like Roger Goodell's call. He's just a commission. He's a commissioner. There's ownership and the GMs who seems to think that black coaches are somehow inferior to white coaches. We were looking at the Donald Trump philosophy of hiring, of retention, of opportunity, which basically says, give it to a white man. White men. Donald Trump's going around saying, white men have been discriminated because of civil rights movement and civil rights policies and diversity policies. Whites have been discriminated. Wait a minute. Last I checked, majority of people in management, CEO, in powerful positions throughout this country in all industries, generally white men. That hasn't changed. You're talking about 60-something plus percent. So the narrative is false. It's false. It's false. So now, instead of having like 65%, 70% white males dominating the CEO level or the leadership level of organizations, like coaches, head coaches in the NFL, they want it to be 100%. 100%. And they are hiring white coaches who keep losing. And that's called white privilege. That's when you don't even qualify. See, they used to say, if you're black and you're getting jobs or education, it's affirmative action, it's DEI. On the flip side, when you're getting jobs and you don't qualify as a white person or a white male particularly, that's called white privilege. So the philosophy now throughout the country under Donald Trump and under the ownership of the NFL, these groups of owners are saying, we want the white male privilege. We want the white male. Even if they lose us, we'd rather have white men coach than have black men coach. And part of the problem is that some of the fans, you see, when you're black, I'm sure Mike Tomlin can attest to this, you're supposed to be perfect. You're not supposed to lose at all. Even if you've never had a losing season, you're not supposed to have losing at all. Because each time you lose, the complaint, the social media chatter, the complaints of the front office is about firing that black coach, firing that N-word. You see, if you're a white coach and you're losing, they just talk about game strategy. Oh, he messed up. Oh, he's a terrible play caller. Oh, he can't motivate the players. It's never about fire that white coach because he's terrible, because he's a white coach. See how that is? So some of these front offices don't even want to deal with that component anymore. They don't want to have to answer calls about the coach's race. You see, it used to be the same way, and it still is the same way about black quarterbacks. They will call. If a quarterback makes a mistake, throws an interception, costs them the game, they're going to talk about, get rid of that black quarterback, get rid of that N-word, he sucks. Yet when Josh Allen or a white quarterback makes the same mistake, they don't mention the race. They don't complain about the race of the quarterback. They talk about he's terrible, he can't lead, he can't throw a good pass. He throws too many interceptions. They criticize the performance, not the race. So at this heightened point where this president came in and everything, even from the federal government and the military, he cleaned house of all black leadership, called them all DEI. And this is the philosophy, this is the agenda now of the NFL. They've become the Donald Trump vision, Donald Trump philosophy. Just hire white men and be damned with diversity. You see, they're kowtowing to the MAGA agenda, to the MAGA ideology. That's what these owners are doing. And don't get it wrong, don't get it twisted. Most of these owners are down with Donald Trump, are down with MAGA. They belong in the billionaires club. And they prefer that ideology over any type of diversity agenda. And that's what we're seeing play out in the NFL these days. That's what we're seeing happening in the NFL these days. They no longer care about considering race as a factor. I know some of y'all are going to get on there in the comments and say, yeah, well, that's right. You're right. It should be colorblind. So why are you hiring failed white coaches if you're so colorblind? Why are coaches who've been losing, who've had losing records, being given opportunity to keep coaching just because they're white men? Why? So it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed. If we want to stay standard in saying to get hired as an NFL head coach, you must have this type of record. You must have won this type of record. You must have had this type of experience. If you want to standardize the hiring and make sure everybody must at least meet a minimum qualification to be a head coach, let's do it. And take race out of it. I'm okay with that. So any coach, black or white, who meets those minimum standards will be given opportunity to coach. Not just this BS Rooney Rule, an actual opportunity to be hired as a coach because they meet minimum standards. But you cannot. Look, remember Lovie Smith? I think his last year in Chicago, I believe he won 10 games. 10 games. And because they lost in the first round of the playoffs, he was fired. He was fired. You know how long it took Chicago to win and make the playoffs after they fired Lovie Smith? I believe it must have been about 6-7 years. They couldn't do anything with Jay Cutler. And then they had a bunch of coaches that they were recycling, losers, until recently. So don't give me this about their qualifications, it's about their ability, because you get rid of black coaches who can win, who have won, or who only had short time to even try to win. But when white coaches are losing, they keep getting recycled, getting chances over and over and over again. That's the issue. If you want to fire black coaches or white coaches for losing, go ahead. But the problem is you're not firing white coaches for losing. They stay for a long time, and then as soon as they get fired, they get hired for another opportunity with another team. You don't want to call it what it is, but that's white privilege hire. And I understand. Just say that. Call it what it is. If you want to say no to DEI, I get it. But then call it what it is. You want white men to run the sidelines of these NFL teams. You want them to control the sidelines. You want them to be leading the teams. You don't want to deal with fans calling and blaming the coach's race for losses, for teams losing, even when you don't provide that coach the manpower to win, the skills to win. You don't want to deal with that anymore. You say, okay, well, so now you kowtowing to racists. So, that's it. Let's call it what it is. You say, okay, we're not going to do DEI hire. But you damn sure are doing white privilege hire. Go and look at it. Some of these coaches, you don't bring in, coaches don't get fired because they're winning coaches. They get fired because they're losers. They've been losing and teams get rid of them. But then you turn around and hire the same losing coaches for other opportunities. That's the problem. And then you fire black coaches who have been winning or who have potential to win, but you don't give them the same, grace, the same period of time to establish a winning team. That's the problem. You don't have to call it diversity. Just hire the best person and let them do their thing. Give them time. Why sign a contract with Mayo for 3 or 4 years and then fire him in the first year? Because it takes about 3 to 4 years for a losing team to be gotten right. So why, Bob Kraft? You fire him right in that first year. You fire Mayo as your head coach. Embarrassing. And he didn't get another chance. You see that? If he was white, he'd probably be a head coach somewhere else right now. They would have hired him to head coach somewhere else. That's what's going on. Recycling, losing white coaches throughout the league. It's like a white man can never go without having a job for too long in the NFL. They will be hired by another team. But if you're black, you have about a year to turn a losing team into a winning team, or you're permanently done as a head coach in the NFL. That's the problem, and that's the real truth. Don't deny it. It's the fact. It's all about white privilege in the NFL. Yeah, you don't care about diversity, but you sure love you some white privilege, and that's what's going on. Fact is fact. Talk about that. Let's go. Well, Amani, I keep it real, and I'm out. Please follow this podcast. I got more coming at you. Straight up. Real talk. Peace out, everybody. Be safe out there.